Good morning, fellow Unitics, followers on Facebook, and all you ships at sea. Good morning, honey. I know you're watching from home, getting ready for tomorrow. Our service format has been changing, where we start big and focus in on the message with music. So I'm going to open this morning with a song recorded by Janice Danfield called Born for Greatness. Feel free to tap along. Look into a child's eyes. Tell me what you see. Reflections of the hopes and dreams of what we're here to be. We are born for greatness. Everyday greatness. Born for greatness. Every day. Every day, yes, we are born for greatness. Everyday greatness. Born for greatness. Every day. Every day, yeah, yeah. There's a soul in every one of us, in every neighborhood. And I believe with all my heart, each soul is good, 'cause we are born for greatness. Everyday greatness. Born for greatness. Every day. Every day, born for greatness. Everyday greatness. Born for greatness. Every day. Every day, yeah, yeah. It isn't just the righteous stuff for all the world to see. We do great things every day, quietly, 'cause we are born for greatness. Everyday greatness. Born for greatness. Every day. Every day, yes, we are born for greatness. Everyday greatness. Born for greatness. Every day. Every day.
Good morning. Welcome to Unity of Lehigh Valley. My name is John, and I'm delighted to be here assisting Reverend Julie Vance and Mark Udemoser. Our affirmative statements express our Unity denominational statement of belief, as well as the vision and mission of Unity of Lehigh Valley. I invite you to join me as we speak the statements aloud. Together we affirm, there is only one presence, one power, one activity in my life and in the universe, God, the good omnipotence. We co-create an awakened world of peace, harmony, and abundance. United in love, we provide a positive environment for all people to discover and express their spiritual nature. During the month of August, we focus on the power of will, represented by the disciple of Matthew and the color silver. Aligning our own power of will with the will of God can help us embrace each of the Unity 12 powers and choose to produce good in our lives. Our affirmation reads, I use my power of will to choose, to commit, and be willing. Please mark your calendars to come to the sanctuary next Sunday, August 22nd. We have a ministerial candidate coming in to do the service that day. We've detailed the information about Reverend Bob Euler, including YouTube links to some of his sermons in our weekly email. We encourage you to take a look at all this information in the email. Our hope is that as many congregants as possible can actually come into the sanctuary next Sunday to meet Bob. He'll also be holding a workshop on Saturday, August 21st, the day before he's coming for the sermon. And that workshop is live in person here in the sanctuary, but it'll also be live streamed for those who cannot physically attend. The workshop's on a love offering basis, and all the details on his workshop are also given in the weekly email. As we continue seeking our new permanent minister, let's join together to affirm our right and perfect minister will appear to us easily. Filled with the spirit of divine love and wisdom, we are guided and directed in our thoughts, our words, and our actions as we move towards the employment of the right minister for the highest good of this ministry. And so it is. Thank you, God. And now, Bev Freeman will come up and join us and speak about Unity's World Day of Prayer.
Okay, my name is Bev Freeman, and I am one of your prayer chaplains. And I am proud to say that the prayer chaplains of Unity of Lehigh Valley invite you to Unity World Day of Prayer, September 8th and 9th, 2021. It will be a virtual event, but that's okay. As we unite hearts and minds with people from around the globe this year, we are affirming together, no matter the circumstances, all is well with my soul. The event is free, but registration is required. See the Unity website, which is up there, https://www.unity.org/WDOP to register. And you are required to register. Please register as soon as possible. The schedule of events is Wednesday, September 8th at 8 p.m., the opening ceremony. Thursday, September 9th, there's a ceremony at 9 a.m., the daily word service. At noon, the prayer service, and at 8 p.m., the sound healing and clearing ceremony. So I repeat, register today. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, Bev and John. And now, as we continue our service, speaking of amazing things that are happening, we're going to sing together with me, Amazing Things. You will do amazing things with the choice each new day brings, and with every step you take, miss the progress that you make. The reason you live is there in every gift you give. Love your life, love your dreams. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Oh, the places you will go and the people you will know. Don't worry when or where or how. You don't need to know that now. You're on the right track. No need to look ahead or back. Just enjoy what this day brings. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. You don't have to work it out. Just stay in the here and now. Let your mind rest for a little while. Sometimes deepest answers come when you're out there having fun. So close your eyes, take a breath and smile, and smile. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. And one more time. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things.
Good morning. The daily word for today is joy. I say yes to the joy that invites me in this moment. Joy is the call of my heart. Whether I am at work or at play, I bring a spirit of joyfulness to everything I do. More than a mood or an attitude, joy is part of me and mine to live and to share. Like all aspects of my divine identity, joy flowers in my consciousness when I hold joyful thoughts and feelings. I express my joy as the excitement of anticipation, fascination at a new discovery, deep satisfaction in a relationship, and the tranquil glow from communing with God in prayer. My joy is contagious, and I love to share in it. I have feelings of joy when I take part in a friend's or family member's joyous moments, their celebrations and accomplishments. I feel quiet joy when I offer encouragement and when I give comfort, grateful to share the care and love of God. Rejoice always. Thessalonians 5:16, chapter 1.
Thank you for blessing us with that, Marissa. And now I'll ask the rest of us to join in a blessing to the world. of spirit on earth, and who you are and all you do is a blessing to the world. We are the heart, we are the hands, we are the voice of spirit on earth, and who we are and all we do is a blessing to the world. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, and who I am and all I do is a blessing to the world. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, and who I am and all I do is a blessing to the world.
And so I invite you now to take a minute to close your eyes and to feel that divine presence that is within us and all around us. And as we come together today, whether we are here in the sanctuary, whether we are watching this service from home, may we feel that sense of oneness and unity. And may we know that as the beautiful words of that song fill our hearts, each of us is a blessing to the world. Each of us has a divine purpose which only we can fulfill. And so as we come together this morning, may we open our minds and hearts to that awareness of the blessing we are and the blessing we are created to be. And so it is. Amen.
When things go wrong, it's natural to wonder, what celestial rule did I break? When things go right, it's logical to ponder, what credit can I take? But the truth is so much easier, I don't need a master plan. I can live here in the moment, 'cause my life is in good hands. I don't need to know where the wind blows, 'cause God knows. I don't need to know what the future holds, 'cause God knows. I need never know how pain ends, how my heart mends. I can just let go, 'cause God knows. Still I find I'm crying out for answers. Guess I'm still craving control. And yet I find I'm afraid of taking chances, as if I could damage my soul. in this moment, I remember it becomes so clear to me that the minute I surrender, I'm as safe as I can be. I don't need to know where the time goes, 'cause God knows. I don't need to know what the future holds, 'cause God knows. I need never know how pain ends, how my heart mends. I can just let go, 'cause God knows. Where the time goes, God knows. Need to I need never know how pain ends, how my heart mends. I can just let go. I can just let go. Just let go. 'Cause God knows. God knows. God knows.
Good morning. As I was listening to the music this morning, the amazing things and blessings to the world, and the beautiful song Mark just sang, I Don't Need to Know. And then I heard the words in the Daily Word, I say yes to the joy that invites me in this moment. It sounds as though all those words are the words of a spiritual optimist. So we all know what an optimist and a pessimist is, but what's a spiritual optimist? Are you a spiritual optimist? Well, let's find out. So if we think of a pessimist, we usually think of that old saying, a pessimist sees the glass as half empty. And a pessimist tends to look at the negative side of things. What can go wrong? If anything can go wrong, it will. A pessimist often has that look about them that they're feeling very serious, that life is hard, and feel kind of burdened. There's a huge weight of the world on their shoulders. On the other hand, an optimist looks at it as the glass is half full. Optimists are often cheerful and smiling people. They always look for the best. And when something's wrong, they might say, everything will be all right, even though underneath they may be saying, I hope so. So most of us would probably say that it's better to be an optimist than a pessimist. Is that right? Yes. But let's look at that from a little bit different perspective. Are there some challenges? Can we be on the scale, if an optimist is here and a pessimist is here, can we be overbalanced as an optimist, or can we be overbalanced as a pessimist? And it's easier to see with a pessimist because we know that when we focus on something all the time, we focus on the worst, we tend to draw the worst to us. And so nobody wants that to happen. But what about an optimist? Sometimes, as an optimist, we can be so busy focusing on what's right that we are ignoring the problems and challenges in our life. Sometimes optimists are called Pollyanna-ish, or looking at the world from rose-colored glasses. that they don't see the world as it is. And we do know that in unity, sometimes we can cover up the challenges by an affirmation, like as if it's going to fill a gaping wound, without really underneath knowing the truth of that affirmation. It's easy to say the words, but how easy it is to live them in our life, not always so easy. So is there a balance point between pessimist and optimist? Well, I think there is, and I would call it a spiritual optimist. This week when I was preparing my message, I found a beautiful quote by Gibran. He says, "The optimist sees the rose and not the thorns. The pessimist stares at the thorns, oblivious to the rose." And I would add to that, the spiritual optimist sees both and sees the value or the good in both. Because in everything there is good, because in everything God is. And so sometimes the problems and challenges in our life, when viewed from a spiritual perspective, can be means of our growth and unfoldment, and can help us to become the persons we are created to be. And when we cover them up or refuse to see those thorns or those challenges, we deny ourselves the opportunity to overcome those challenges and to really become the person we were meant to be. So the spiritual optimist, in some ways, is a realist. A spiritual optimist can see problems and challenges in our lives and in the world, but we can see them from a higher perspective. So we might see a challenge in our life, and instead of saying, "Oh, this is terrible, what's going to happen?" we can say, "What is this challenge teaching me? What do I need to learn here? How can I grow in this situation? What do I need to change in myself to see the change I want to see?" Because we know that anything we see on the outer is a reflection of what's in here, inside ourselves. Charles Fillmore had this to say about a spiritual optimist in his book, Revealing Word. "A spiritual optimist is one who has the inclination to expect good, to see God everywhere, has a sturdy belief in the goodness of life, in the goodness of the universe." And that's a bit different from looking at the world through rose-colored glasses and saying everything is wonderful. It's saying we expect good, we draw it to us, maybe not in the form that we're expecting, but we expect that in the highest and best way possible, there is good in everything. What we focus on expands, and no matter what happens, we trust that there's good in everything, even if we can't yet see it. So a spiritual optimist trusts that there's divine order present in our lives and in our circumstances that will be revealed to us at the right time in the right way. And I love the song that Mark was singing today, "I Don't Have to Know." We don't have to know how it's going to unfold. We only have to trust that it will unfold in the right and perfect way. Or as the song goes, God knows, and that's all we need to know. So a spiritual optimist knows that nothing can separate us from God, because God is in us, around us, and everywhere present. And when we are really, truly a spiritual optimist, we not only say the words, but we feel them. We know them in the deepest part of ourselves. So a spiritual optimist sees beyond appearances to the truth or the essence of a situation. You know, Jesus was a spiritual optimist. We know that Jesus could look into the eyes, into the soul of anyone and see the essence of who they were, even if nobody else could see it. And there's so many instances in Scripture where Jesus displayed that spiritual optimism. One of the ones that's my favorite, and it's not a real well-known passage, but it's from John 4:35. And in this passage, Jesus and his disciples had been traveling, probably he was teaching, and the disciples were hungry. And so they were kind of saying to Jesus, so when are we going to go get something to eat? And Jesus, in the meantime, was looking out, and this was in winter, no doubt. Jesus was looking out in the fields, and he's saying, well, the fields are already white, already ripe with harvest. And the disciples must have thought, what's the matter with him? It's 4 months until the harvest, and he's seeing the harvest everywhere. Well, Jesus was looking beyond appearances. It wasn't that he was denying that the crops were not there to be harvested, but he was saying he could see beyond that barren landscape to seeing the possibility, to seeing what could be. And I think he was saying that whatever appears to be barren in our lives can come to a very fruitful resolution in due time. And maybe he was always also saying to the disciples who were so concerned about physically eating that maybe there's something beyond the physical food. Maybe there's spiritual nourishment, and maybe they needed to focus on that a little bit more. So a spiritual optimist sees what's possible, what might be possible. So how do we become spiritual optimists, or how do we maintain that consciousness of spiritual optimism? And I suspect that most of us here, or most of us watching this service from the comforts of your home, are, for the most part, spiritual optimists. But I also would doubt that most of us are spiritual optimists all the time, that we vary from doubts and fears to that certainty that God knows that everything is in divine order, that everything is unfolding in the perfect time. So the first thing to realize is that spiritual optimism is a choice. And whenever there's a choice, it involves an awareness of where we are right at the moment. And so I had lots of opportunities this week, which often happens when I do a message, to practice spiritual optimism. And I became aware of how many times I was not being spiritually optimistic. Someone asked me this morning, how's your book going? As I've been working on writing my book for the last year and a half. And this past week, I got a note from my editor that the edits will be returned to me tomorrow. I'm just starting a process of, which is called 99 Designs, where I start a contest to have designers design a book cover for my book. And I'm in the process of developing a website. And all of a sudden, I just became so overwhelmed by all this and started looking at the negative, being a pessimist, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get all this done? How's this all going to come together? And what if I put out this book and nobody likes it? And all of those kind of things, those doubts and fears. And so I had to stop and say, okay, I don't want to come from this place. I don't want to be a pessimist. I don't want to be negative. And I could have covered it up and said, everything's going to be all right. But I knew that I needed to go inside and say, what's going on with me right now? What am I afraid of? What do I need to change in myself so that I can move forward with this? And what happens, I think, for all of us when we're willing, and I love that today, that this, the power for this month here is will. Because once we're aware of what's happening in our lives and how we're reacting, then we can choose to change. We can choose to ask, okay, what's the truth about this situation? What am I afraid of? What can I do differently? And so when I began to look at those questions, and I began to journal, because journaling is a wonderful process for me in getting in touch with what I'm really feeling and moving beyond it. So as I began to do that, I began to feel a shift. I began to feel that I could really see things differently, that I could really see that throughout this whole process, everything has unfolded in perfect divine order, at the right time, in the right way. Things I couldn't have imagined that have unfolded. And so once I felt that peace, then I could see from a higher perspective. And I could feel that sense of peace, and I could regain that sense of spiritual optimism, of knowing that it was unfolding as it was meant to, that everything that I needed to do, I would be guided to do, and I could do it. So it becomes clear in that explanation that one of the things that is key to being a spiritual optimist or maintaining that spiritual optimism is our connection with Source, with Spirit. There is no way that I know of to become a spiritual optimist or to maintain that consciousness without our connection, without feeling our connection to Source. And so every day, it's important to take that time to make that connection a priority. We all tend to go to God when something's wrong, and sometimes when we've tried everything else. But what if we always went to God first when we begin to have a challenge, when we begin to see ourselves reacting negatively? And however we find to connect with Spirit, however that is for us, and it may be different at different times. One morning this week, I just clearly knew I had to go out and take a walk, get outside those four walls. Sometimes for me it's journaling, sometimes it's meditation or prayer, sometimes it's being in nature. Whatever helps us to connect to our Source, because we can never solve a problem. We can never understand a challenge from that level of the problem. We need to look from a higher perspective. And once we feel our connection with Spirit, then we can come from that higher perspective and see the truth. And another question that I find really helpful, and I probably shared this before, is that when I'm feeling that negativity within myself, when I'm feeling like I don't really feel good about where I am, I simply ask, how can I shift to a more positive state of consciousness? Or how can I shift to spiritual optimism? And I guarantee that when you ask that question, if you really want to know the answer, you'll receive one. And usually it will be something that you'll be guided to do. Maybe it's as simple as go for a walk. Maybe it's as simple as journaling. Maybe it's simply to sit with it, which is a good explanation, a good idea too. So when we do that and we feel that shift, then we can see from another perspective and we move along and we take the action that we're meant to take. So, and obviously when we think about spiritual optimism, certainly focusing on the positive, whether we're an optimist, a spiritual optimist, that is so important. And one of the ways that I think, and we hear this many times, that we connect with that positive is through gratitude. So whenever we are in a place where we're focusing on what's wrong or what might happen, that we immediately shift, what am I grateful for? This week I was annoyed with someone in my life, and I started thinking about all the negative things. And so I started thinking about, okay, so what am I grateful for? What am I grateful for about this person? And I began to go inside, into my heart, and focus on the blessings this person brings into my life. And before too long, I wasn't annoyed anymore, and I had gone beyond that. So when we focus on gratitude, we draw more and more good to us. It shifts us. I think it's the easiest way we shift from that negativity to positive spiritual optimism. And along with that, a reminder that also giving thanks in advance. Thank you, God, that I am able to be a peaceful presence today. Thank you that I know exactly what to do, what step to take. I do that every morning in my prayer time, giving thanks in advance for what I want to experience that day. And by the end of the day, it's very rare that it doesn't come about. So, a spiritual optimist then keeps on keeping on. The world isn't always what we want it to be. We're not there yet, wherever there yet is, all the time. But sometimes we know we're on the way. We haven't yet reached Christ consciousness, but every now and then we touch it. So keep on asking, what step can I take to move to greater peace, greater love, greater light, greater optimism? And then go into action. Spiritual optimists take the steps they're guided to take. Not just hear them, not just think what they could do, but they take the steps. I have this wonderful, or I did have when I was at Palmyra, this wonderful little wind-up toy, and it was 2 feet. And when you'd wind it up, they were kind of moving forward. I really wanted to bring that today, but I couldn't find it. I hope I didn't let it eliminate it from my life. But think of that idea of that little moving forward, a step at a time. Pray and move your feet. Spiritual optimists take one step at a time, trusting that they'll be guided in the next step and the next and the next after that. And then finally, what is really important is to cultivate friendships and support systems with spiritual optimists. Today we're talking about prayer, World Day of Prayer, prayer chaplains, calling silent unity. If you want to get a positive response and a soothing, healing one, silent unity is a wonderful place to call. Have a prayer partner. Have a spiritual community. Have friends that support you in being optimistic. That instead of saying, oh, isn't it awful, and commiserating with you on that, that when they see that you are feeling negative, that you are being pessimistic, that they lead you from that place while understanding how you're feeling, but lead you to see it from a different perspective. I was very blessed this week that once when I was becoming fearful and negative, I had a friend who was able to show me it from a different perspective, from spiritual optimism. And that's a wonderful gift that we can give to one another. So the world needs spiritual optimists. And when we become spiritual optimists, we can do amazing things, and we definitely are blessings to the world. So before we take these thoughts into meditation, we're going to sing together When I Pray. And I'm so glad we're singing this song today. I love this song. I haven't heard it for a while because it's a song that really takes us deeper within to feeling that presence, which is what we really want to do today. So, When I Pray.
Just making sure I've selected the right one. When I pray, I feel my heart go deeper, my heart go deeper into my God. When I pray, I feel my heart go deeper, my heart go deeper into my God. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray. I feel my soul go deeper, my soul go deeper into my God.
And so now, as you feel your heart, your soul going deeper within, I invite you to feel that presence of God and to know that presence is with you always. And I encourage you to invite that divine presence into any situation or any challenge you may be experiencing. Any way in which you are having difficulty seeing from the eyes of spiritual optimism. And as you invite that divine presence into this situation, feel your willingness to receive an answer. Know that you're not alone. That divine wisdom is guiding you, wanting to show you another way of looking at this situation, this challenge. And if you're willing, ask, what is another way, a higher way of looking at this challenge? And then listen. Listen for a thought, an image, a feeling, a knowing that there is another way of looking at this situation, even if you can't yet see it. So take a few moments to just listen for what Spirit is wanting to say to you right now. And if you don't feel the shift right now, keep on listening. Keep on trusting. And know that the answer, the solution, the next step for you to take is on its way to you. Feel a peace in that knowing. And I invite you to offer, in the silence of your heart, a prayer of gratitude for what you have received today and for the good that is on its way to you. And so we say, thank you, God, And so it is. Amen. And gently, and as you're ready, I invite you to bring your awareness back to this time and place, feeling that divine presence surrounding and enfolding you.
We are grateful for the offerings that you share and bring to Unity of Lehigh Valley. At our website, unityoflehighvalley.org, you can contribute your gift by clicking on the Donate button on the top of the navigation bar. You may also mail a check directly to ULV or set up a weekly or monthly payment from your bank. Please contact the office if you have any questions on how to donate. For those of you here in the sanctuary, please leave your offering in the silver bowl at the back of the sanctuary. We bless the gifts we hold in our hands by affirming together, the activity of Spirit through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
Prayer of gratitude. If the only prayer you can think of is thank you, it is enough. Join me as we sing, Give Thanks. Give thanks with a grateful heart. I thank you, God, for I believe you prosper all I give and I receive. Give thanks with a grateful heart. I thank you, God, for I believe you prosper all I give and I receive. And now let my thoughts say I am strong. Let me claim that I am rich because of what our God has done through us. And now let my thoughts say I am strong. Let me claim that I am rich because of what our God has done through us. Give thanks. Give thanks. Give thanks.
And so today we do give thanks for the gifts that are given in love and received in love. We are grateful for this spiritual community, for the unity movement, for all the blessings in our life. And we know that as we give in love, joy, abundance, so shall we receive. And so we open our minds and hearts, and we know that the gifts that are received today and in the days to come are used for the highest and best for this ministry, for the greater community, and in the world. And we say thank you, God. Amen.
Well, thank you, one and all. As we draw our service to a close, may you rise at home, join a hand if you feel comfortable, and sing together our peace song. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Have a wonderful week.